So it's been a long time coming, and Square Enix listened to the fans, and here it is. Final Fantasy VII Remake! Now, I'm gonna get this cat out the bag. I personally have never played Final Fantasy VII. To be fair, the reason why I never played Final Fantasy VII, at least as a child growing up, is I was never into that, you know, JRPG genre. I didn't like how it was like a turn-based battle system where like you had to, you know, wait your turn and someone's like, I hit you, now you hit me, now I hit you, now you hit me. I wasn't a fan of that back then. Now, as I got older, I started playing more and more Final Fantasy games at like, you know, friends' house, cousins' places, and I wanted to get back into Final Fantasy VII, but every time when I made plans to play Final Fantasy VII, it just never happened. I know, I just don't hate me for it, I just haven't. Now, the reason why you should hate me is because I'm gonna admit, my very first Final Fantasy game that I played from beginning to end. Now remember, this is not like, you know, my very first Final Fantasy game I ever played. This is my first main entry, as in 1 through 15, whenever 15 comes out. My first main entry Final Fantasy game that I played from beginning to end on my own time, not at a friend's house, not at a cousin's house, whatever. My first one was Final Fantasy 13. I know, a bad one to start with. Cause honestly, before that, I played all the spin-off games. I played Dissidia Final Fantasy, I played Final Fantasy Tactics, and I loved all of those. Now personally, when I played Final Fantasy 13, I enjoyed it to an extent, but I knew this was not the best that the series had to offer. I knew that there was just plenty of things missing throughout the adventure in Final Fantasy 13. Exploration, a very well-developed combat system. Yeah, that definitely needed more work in that department. And a story that was, it didn't make sense to me at some points. But after Final Fantasy 13, I got into Final Fantasy 10, I got into Final Fantasy 11, and I slowly started getting into the main installments of Final Fantasy. And then I played some more of the spin-off titles like Crisis Core on the PSP. That game was awesome. I fucking love that game. By far, Crisis Core was one of the reasons why I wanted to get Final Fantasy VII and play it, but it just never happened. And then Square Enix announced at this past E3, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I gotta admit, I'm pretty excited. I know the story for the most part in Final Fantasy VII. I just want to have the experience from playing the game beginning to end and understand completely the craze that people had back in those PS1 days. Now, I'm assuming Square Enix knows that if they change even the slightest thing aside from the presentation, fans are gonna get pissed the fuck off. So I am guessing they're gonna keep the same combat system and basically really just update the graphics, make it from the ground up. Similar to the Oddworld franchise, for those of you who have played Oddworld, the people at Oddworld recently released a complete remake of the first Oddworld game from the ground up. Like, they completely remade that game, and they didn't change next to anything from it except, you know, make it more modern a little bit, you know, presentation-wise, and offer, like, you know, a few gameplay tweaks that was, you know, shown in the later sequels of Oddworld. And it was a great game. People loved it. I loved it. It was a fun game. So I'm hoping that people at Square Enix take this approach. You know, make the presentation just amazing. And, you know, add a few tweaks in there that make it a little bit more modern, a little bit, you know, give it a new edge, but do not mess with the system. Do not mess what made Final Fantasy VII that amazing game back then. Because I want to experience it. Now I have a reason to actually get into Final Fantasy VII. Like, I kid you not, even having never played the game myself before, when they first showed that trailer and I heard that music playing, oh my god, like towards the end where you see, I don't know what that guy's name is, the guy with the Gatling gun, the black guy. As soon as you saw his gun and you hear that music play, I was immediately like, oh my god, they're gonna do it! They're gonna do it! And then you see Cloud with that awesome hair, that freaking Buster Sword on his back. Never having played the game, I was excited. I was excited. And I can't even imagine what some of you all felt having played the game yourselves and you saw this remake trailer. Like, it's been a long time coming. Ever since they showed that tech demo when they were showing the PS3 all those years ago, fans were on the roof screaming, where the fuck is my Final Fantasy VII Remake? And it's coming. Now, as to when it's coming, that's up in the air at the moment. I feel like this trailer was just to show, hey, it's in the works. But you're gonna have to wait to see what we have for gameplay wise and anything else for years to come. But the same thing with Kingdom Hearts 3. They showed that trailer to let people know back at E3 2014, whenever that was, 2013. They showed that trailer to say, hey, it's in development. Just letting you know, we'll show some stuff in the future. So I feel like it's the same thing with this trailer. They're just showing this to say, hey, it's gonna happen, just, you know, give us time. And you might see it at next E3 or for sure at the E3 after that, E3 2017. But I'm excited. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. I wanna know some of your best Final Fantasy moments. Like, what was your favorite Final Fantasy? Mine personally, having never played, like, you know, most of the main entries, my favorite would be Final Fantasy X at the moment. Maybe once I play Final Fantasy VII, that will be my favorite game. But as of now, of the ones that I've played in terms of like the core franchise, you know, 1 through 15, 10 by far is my favorite. But let me know what you all think of your expectations. Do you expect a lot of this game? Do you think they're going to change a lot? Are they going to keep things the same? Let me know what you all think. If you enjoyed the video, if you could leave a like, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so as well, I would love you forever, people. And as always, stay beautiful.